Hey, welcome to the Showboys podcast. You got Pixel Nick and Chadwick the Third here. We are continuing our summer takeover with House of the Dragon Season 2 companion series. Chad, how are you doing this evening?
I'm great, man. I'm great. These are always my favorite to do, so I'm always excited to come on, especially when it's Game of Thrones world. Like this is my jam. So
Yeah. I go back to when I was talking to Mike about this. I was like, we have to do the companion series, but I'm also not trying to do like 3 podcast things a week. So
right.
something's got to give, and
Yeah.
everything else must give way for House of the Dragon in good old Westeros.
Yeah. Plus, we always have you and I always have a summer takeover, whether it's like gaming stuff or House of the Dragon. Like it's always happened. I think since I've been on the show. So
that seems pretty accurate, and maybe each one's getting longer and longer.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely, I think the first iteration was like a month of just like straight Nick and Chad gaming stuff. And then, yeah, they progressively have gotten more in depth. And now we officially just said, all right, 8 weeks aside, we are doing House of the Dragon Companion series. So welcome. So tonight we are recapping episode 3. This is our 4th episode in this series for us. So go back, check out episode 0, where we talk about the show, what we're excited about, all the way up until this point where we are going to talk about episode 3. So episode 3, also like shout out NPR. You have the best recap episode articles. They are the most unbiased in terms of filled with just like either seething like disgust and hate for something, which most, like, I'm appalled at how often people can just find things that are wrong. And it's always the same things that people complain about. So I'm like, just recap like the episode for me, and let me digest it a little bit more. Not just don't give me all your opinions about pacing and names and the same things people have complained about Game of Thrones series since 2012.
Right. Yeah. That stuff drives me nuts. Honestly, that's why I kind of like hate games journalism, because you like go and read a review for a game and it's all political BS that you're reading. Like they didn't do this right, or there wasn't a female character, or there wasn't this or whatever. It's like, I just want to know if the game's good. I don't care about any of this crap. I don't even pay attention to it. And I have friends that are like hyper locked on that stuff. They're like, oh, did you see the new Star Wars show? Like it has all female characters and the females are always beating up the guys. I'm like, dude, I don't pay attention to that. Like it's crazy that you even pay attention to that stuff when you're watching it. But drives me nuts.
That stuff's like just a side piece to like take notes on. It's just like ancillary details that only matter out here to some people, whereas like it has no real relevance to like the quality of the show, give or take some stuff. So yeah, NPR, they have a good recap series where whoever's writing that, they're doing a very good job at it.
So I do have to tell you a little snippet, a story. So I was on Facebook earlier on in the week, and there was like this super long article about the Stark character in House of the Dragon, Cregan Stark. Stark. And I was like, oh, this is sweet. It's like his history. But in reading it through, like maybe the second paragraph of the article spoiled the entirety of the show for me. Like it said it whenever he got down here, this happened already. I was like, oh my gosh. Like I already knew all this stuff, but it sucks that I just had it like freshly spoiled. And I was so bummed about it because I was like, this article is sweet. And then I got to that point. I was like, no, why did I just read that?
I usually find my article feeds for whatever show that I like and stick with it. Because there's always the people that are, there's the ones that write in reference to what you see with your eyes in the show. And then there's people who write as if it's just common knowledge of everything that has happened in the books, and they just freely spoil things.
Yeah.
It's like, could have used the warning.
There was no warning. Nothing. It was literally like the second paragraph of this long thing on Facebook that I was super interested about, because I don't know, we didn't learn too much about that character. So it was like mostly the first paragraph was all his history, and then it was like, boom, by the way, here's the entirety of the story. It's like, shit.
Yeah, that's another plus to the NPR articles, is they completely are written from the perspective of what you see on TV, with maybe a few sparing notes in terms of like, in this article we got a reference to how far along in the book we are about. So we're about 48 pages of 182 or something of the whole series in reference to the whole book.
Wow.
If I read
further,
if I understood that right, yeah.
That's further than I thought we would have been. I knew that. I think this all goes pretty quickly once things pop off here.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't think so. Man, maybe you are right on like the 3-season thing.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. If you know, maybe we're like 10 pages through with this season, and I don't know if they meant so far. No, I'm pretty sure I read a couple times. It's so far in the series we are 42 of like 180 pages. So if the first season covered like 30 some pages, right? Maybe this will get us up to like 60, maybe.
60, yeah. So
But like you said, things start happening quickly though, and but in contrast to that, they also noted that a lot of this episode is made up events. Like a lot of these events didn't actually happen. Like at this point, they are really extrapolating the history at this point and inventing a lot of these scenes to, you know, build the characters and
see here, and we talked about it maybe on episode 0. I'm fine with that because the book is written like a historical piece. So there's no dialogue in the book unless it's spoken in a historical context. So they're going to have to add stuff in. But I do have like slight concern because I have favorite characters on the show, but we don't know how long they last in the book. And they've become popular characters on the show that could die presumably at any moment, right? So I do have concern of that because like I was thinking Daemon, prime example. Like I don't know what happens to Daemon, even getting spoiled by Joffrey. He doesn't discuss that. So I'm like, I mean, he could die any episode, dude. I have no idea. I have no idea what happens to him, you know, and that sucks because I really like him. And then I'm curious, like when they're doing a show like this that has a historical text as the basis of it versus a fictional novel, if you will. If a character becomes super popular, like, do they try to extend that character's life a little bit longer?
Right.
So
yeah, maybe shuffle the deck in terms of like how the story unfolds a little bit. Yeah, I could see that. And I mean, I don't know. I totally get. There's a ton of fun for everyone that has read the book, seeing it kind of acted out. But there's also a certain bliss about not knowing any of that, and that's kind of where I prefer to sit, especially with Game of Thrones. I like not knowing when these characters are going to die, etc.
Yeah, exactly.
So with that, the tapestry at the beginning is starting to definitely become the recap of prior episodes, which is great.
Yes. Yep, I noticed that.
I think it took a little bit, right? Took a couple episodes, and now it's officially kind of acting as the previously on element to this. We had some executed rat catchers hanging. We had the little Jaehaerys dead. All that kind of stuff. Anything you kind of picked out of there?
Yeah, so I picked the rat catcher. That was really the only thing that sparked, and I was like, oh, they're definitely, so it is changing episode to episode because that was definitely the rat catcher hanging there. Yeah, I missed the kid. And I also missed I looked for it and I didn't see it, the king getting like stabbed or whatever you said last episode.
I didn't see that this time either.
Okay. All right.
So I think they were like just tossing in. My theory is like maybe for the first 2 episodes they're kind of tossing in references to later events, but now that we're kind of got some stuff under our belt, they're going to start referencing past stuff.
That makes sense.
They had to fill it with something, but they could have just filled it with previously on from
season
last
1
season
stuff. Yeah.
I'm still not sure about that. But one thing that's cool is like they're really good at getting their expressions. Like Aegon has a smirk, Rhaenyra is noticeably angry about something. So I do enjoy that. Fun thing, how they open in this episode as well. That's interesting is that we see some new characters, but some known names. We have the Brackens, right? And the Blackwoods. And I believe you mentioned this on the last episode where there was a scene last season where there was a a Bracken or a Blackwood, like a younger one that came. Was that to Storm's End? Was that what that scene was? I forget, but I believe that's a kind of like a callback to that.
So I think that one of those characters, it wasn't Storm's. Well, I don't know where they were, but
no, they were in the Riverlands. Rhaenyra,
young Rhaenyra. Yep.
Yes.
Yep. So I think that's what that is. And then I think that I might be totally making this up, but I think these two families are like the Hatfield and McCoy families, or they're just always feuding with each other in this world. I might be entirely making that up in my head, but
you're not.
I think okay. I thought I remember.
Yeah. It's a generational conflict, and it's even referenced where it's like, why, what why are they fighting? It is completely unknown to history, which is a nice parallel to what's happening between the Targaryens.
Right.
And I think even, was it Rhaenyra and Rhaenys? Like, I think it was Rhaenys that was suggesting, like, it was when she was talking to Rhaenyra in a few scenes from now, that what is the cause of this war? Is it going to be, she went all the way back to, like, was it the point which Luke took Aemon's eye? Like, was that the start of the war? Like, it's really not going to matter once, like, it pops off and ends. What started it? Because Rhaenyra is constantly fixated on what is the thing that's going to start this war and how can we prevent it? And Rhaenys is kind of like, that's not really, we're kind of past all that.
Yeah. So it's funny because I was actually just thinking about something similar to this the other day. So we have a neighboring fire department that we feud with, and we have always feuded with, and we hate each other, and it is what it is. But literally nobody that works on either department currently knows why that is. Like, it's a generational thing. Like, two chiefs 50 years ago didn't get along, and now we just hate each other. And we just, like, it's like, when does this stuff end? You know what I mean? Like, it's gotta, I don't even know why I hate you. I just hate you.
Firehouses.
Yep. Yeah. So it's still like a thing today. It's just the modern lens of these generational feuds between these families.
Yeah, and I really liked how they did this because it starts off with just kind of like, one set of young knights, and even maybe squires. They're really young. They just kind of roll up, and I think the two main ones are somewhat prominent parts of the families, perhaps, but they really roll up and they're like, hey, don't move the border markers, which is cool because that's in some, like, RTS games, like the idea of border markers just being stones. So they just kind of get into, like, a little, like, teenage argument at the park. Someone draws a sword, they get into a fight, which kicked off the battle between these two families, and it's the Battle of the Burning Mill. And, like, thousands, like, were dead from this
dude,
small thing. And that's the one thing, all it took to pop it off, right? And that is another, like, parallel to what's happening with the Targaryens.
Yeah. So there were actually multiple scenes in this episode that, like, I don't want to say shocked me. There was definitely one that shocked me. We'll get into it later in the episode. But this one, it shocked me for two reasons. A, there is, like, an absurd amount of bodies in that field. And it's just, I love the way that they did it, where they showed them, like, in this little scuffle between these two teenagers in the field, and then immediately flashed to the aftermath of the battle.
Mm-hmm.
In the brutality of the battle too. The first body you see has, like, a spear through the neck, and then it pans up and you see the field and the windmill in the back burning. But at the same time, I was like, oh no, dude, like, don't start doing this shit. Like, I want to see that battle. You know what I mean? I got to see some sort of, so please don't Shogun us and just skip over big portions of this story. And maybe this isn't a big portion.
I don't think it is. I mean, it's technically the first battle of the war. That's its significance, but I think it's just like, you know, they did it in Game of Thrones. Like they're saving some production costs by not showing.
Right.
Game of Thrones cares about the dialogue and the character development and all of that. So, you know, it's not. I just don't really. I don't consider needing to be like a main like battle show. Like,
right. Yeah, and it's funny. It's funny too because it's not. I don't know if it's because I'm just so emotionally attached to this world that I enjoy everything that I get to see in it. But it's not as offensive as like Shogun was without the battles.
Oh no, right.
Like if there wasn't a single battle this season, I'd probably still love this season. I loved the first season. There really wasn't any major battles. I mean, we saw a little stepstone stuff here and there. It's just I enjoy this world, and I think this episode is phenomenal. This might be my favorite episode out of all of them so far. I thought this episode was great, and I think we are now maybe at that tipping point where things are going to pop off early, and we can talk. I don't know if we want to talk about later that the episode name for next week's episode is already out. But I think it hints. I think it hints at maybe it's time, which I'm excited for because I need to see some dragon fire, man.
Yeah, and I mean, Shogun was more of a letdown because it's not every day we get to see like medieval Japan like conflicts,
right?
Especially at scale. It's such a good production value. Whereas like Game of Thrones, we know it's coming, we know it'll be there. And again, like there's nothing particularly special about those two families fighting in a field. That's kind of a throwaway thing. Like we get it. We've seen plenty of medieval European skirmishes. So I'm fine.
But this is like this battle is like, as far as the body count, it's like maybe Battle of the Bastards level body count, just not in a pile. Like they're just spread across the field in a single layer.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy that they mustered up like that, and just that fight just ensued probably over a course of hours or all day, as people just showed up to like duke it out. They were just finally letting out their angst against each other, generational hate. Yeah. But it's cool that later in the episode, they're kind of referenced from both sides as being like both very important houses in the Riverlands. I think them together was 40,000. So 20 and 20 just to split it. But to, some people's shock, it's like, well, they kind of duked it out and they're all dead now. So they're not gonna be a lot of help.
So yeah, I was curious about the purpose of showing that, or not the purpose of showing it, but the purpose of maybe George R.R. Martin writing that in the original text, because is it so the Riverlands is just like a battlefield for the Greens and the Blacks, and there's really no other players because they're all dead anyway? They already duked it out before everything popped off in the Riverlands.
No, I think those are just like two of the biggest but most aggressive houses. I think everyone else adds up to some nominal, still in the thousands, but I think those were significantly like important. To have, and they're one sided with Rhaenyra, one sided with Aegon, so they're already split. So I think whether it was Cole or Daemon or Aemon trying to secure maybe both those houses' loyalties, or go in there and just like muster up control of all that before shit started hitting the fan, I think that was like ultimately their goal. But already that situation is deteriorating before even any family member makes a move. It's just the realm is just at that point. Everyone wants to fight. And it's also the same situation that Otto and Alicent discuss. It's like there's no restraint, like there's no long game. These houses finally had a feeling of an excuse to
and even I think Alicent and Rhaenyra at the end of the episode discussed this too. Like, we were at that tourney and we saw how ready to go these guys are for blood and glory. So like let's figure this out now, or it's really going to pop off. And this is our first sneak peek of that, where it's just at a boiling point everywhere. I mean, the Riverlands.
Yeah. And my wife had the exact probably reaction that they would want anyone to have to how they let that unfold, is like, tensions, teenage fight, and then next scene is just like person with like a sore through his neck. She like gasped. She was like shocked that little fight turned into just like straight murder. Then they go wide pan and just everyone's dead. And she's like, whoa. She's like, did that all just happen from that? I'm like, pretty sure. It's intense.
Yep. Yeah. So and I thought we were
going for.
Yeah, I thought we were going to get maybe an explanation later on, but I think you're right. I think that's just what popped that big battle off, was that little argument at the beginning.
Yeah, that, or probably one killed, like someone died in there and they ran back to their respective families, and then they're like, raise the banners. We're about to raise hell.
Yeah.
But on from there, we do pan to Dragonstone, where we see Eric and Eric getting buried side by side. And Rhaenyra's not really, like, she sees that as just like another like sign of like, war is just ever getting closer and closer to me. My family's in danger. I need to find a way to stop this. And this is where Rhaenys starts to kind of advise her. And I like Rhaenys's, she's definitely reserved. She's definitely thoughtful about things, like, but she tries to point Rhaenyra in the right direction. She doesn't tell her what to do. She doesn't say things flatly. She kind of speaks in a little bit of a riddle in terms of like suggesting, and lets Rhaenyra kind of come to her own senses about that. So I do love Rhaenys's scenes where she is just kind of advising, like as a true advisor should, like just really pointing things out and letting the ruler come to their conclusions. But ultimately she does suggest, she's like, Alicent, not that far of a reach to say you guys might be able to reconcile something.
Yeah, it's not. And we've said that before, where we said that we think these two still have some love for each other deep down. And I think that it was a smart move for the way this episode panned out to at least try this. Do I think maybe the strategy of doing it was a little risky maybe for Rhaenyra? Yes, I think it was very risky to do it the way she did it. But I think she owed it. I think it shows that she is this is me on Team Black maybe talking. I think she's the better leader for even trying this. I don't think Alicent would have went out of her way to try to do something like this. And you see that just by her reaction to everything that Rhaenyra is saying. And I am also excited. I know we're skipping way ahead. Let's save it for later. We'll save it for that discussion later on when we talk about them two talking, because I'm excited about a couple things that came out there.
Yeah, but I will note, at least on the entry of it, I like how, again, it highlights her similarity to Daemon to take risks. But also, we're talking about an entire realm that was in peacetime for, a couple hundred years. So I think it's very sensible and realistic to say you have a medieval city that has been in peacetime for a long time, and it's not out of the realm to have someone who used to live there, for one, with very connected people in there to get her in and out. So she's, she knows that place is as good as anyone. So I think it's pretty realistic of her to just slip in. Like, she's confident. It's your house. Like, imagine, again, like I said last week, breaking into your house and just like stealthily doing what you need to do and getting out. You know how your family moves. You know where everything's at. You know where the dog sleeps. Like, I didn't have any problem with that, or anyone doing those in and outs in this world.
Yeah, it was just my concern that, so she threatens her with the knife, and then she's like, I can kill you before anybody gets to me. But then Alicent could have easily been like, all right, yeah, have a good day, and walked away and been like, hey, Rhaenyra's right there, go grab her. You know what I mean? Like, you have to suspend your disbelief there for a moment at the end of the episode.
Yeah, I definitely think how that scene played out, and we'll talk about that later, that has some a little bit of holes in it too, for
Yeah.
sure. In terms
Yeah.
of like where their heads were at, like ultimately you have to just be 20 feet away from Rhaenyra to shout,
Right.
"Hey, look,
Hey,
it's
look.
Rhaenyra."
Yeah. 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 Right. Exactly.
But I think there's some love there,
Yeah.
anyways. Um, I think this is super cool. We get Christian Cole. We get a nice little quiet scene with Christian Cole where he's just kind of like staring down in the is it his chambers? I feel like those are the hands
Yeah.
chambers.
Yeah.
With the way it was set up. But he's just contemplating life like he should be because he knows he's a piece of shit.
Yep.
But I like this overall scene because we get him walking to the small council and eh, he realizes that Aemond has made like his drinking buddies his King's Guard, and they're just
Yep.
kind of like slacking off on the stairs, and he just kind of looks at them. And they kind of like, oh yeah, right, we should stand up.
Yeah.
White
Yep.
cloaks, all
Loved it.
that jazz. So still, Kristen, even though he's a piece of shit, he still has the right mind and respect for his status, the King's Guard, and he doesn't he doesn't like that. Like
Right.
even though he's poor representation of it, he still believes that the King's Guard should not be those people.
Yeah. Yeah. But see, that's why I have the biggest problem with him is that he acts one way and then
Yeah.
demands people act another way, and that pisses me off. It always has pissed me off through life, really, when people act one way and then hold you to a much higher standard when they're actually shitbags. But yeah,
But
that
it's
whole
right,
scene,
though.
it is right, but
He's not wrong
he's not
to
wrong.
hold them to that standard.
No,
It's just hypocritical, though.
it's very hypocritical. Yeah. I do have to note, I love the hand pin that they have on him because
Yes.
it's not because you can't put it on the armor, obviously. So it's like actually like a neck ring, I guess, that goes over top of his gear.
So yeah, I wasn't sure if that was just like a necklace or like his cape, his cape like.
Yeah, I don't know. I think
thing?
the cape like snaps onto his gear in the
Yeah,
back because they showed
that was in the last episode.
Yeah, they showed Allison putting it on him in one of these episodes.
It's almost like a maester chain, but with hands.
Yeah, yeah, yep. So I was
Now-
like, that's cool. I don't know, like in my mind when they gave him the hand at last episode, I assumed like that would mean, okay, armor's coming off. I'm no longer the commander of the King's Guard. I'm now the hand of the king. So I find it a little weird that he seemingly is keeping both positions, which seems odd.
I like this whole thing with Cole because it at least adds complexity to his character, who otherwise we could just write off as a shitbag, which we were for the first 2 episodes,
right?
And he is. But this scene alone adds like some layers to him, which are worth pondering. Because first off, he's got the hand chain, cool.
Yeah,
he's still wearing the armor.
Yep.
Is he hand or is he Lord Commander of the King's Guard? Furthermore, when he goes into the council room, the hand is pinned to the chair, so he's not even wearing the actual thing that all of Game of Thrones signifies as the hand of the king. So like he's walking this weird like I'm hand of the king, but I'm not hand of the king. I'd rather be like Lord Commander.
Yeah.
Where are you, Cole? Do you not want to be hand of the king because you're a piece of shit? Or
no, I think what it is that he wants to do shit his way. So he's going to take that position because he knows it's more powerful and he has more of a voice being the hand. But it is cool that we get to see like an active hand, because most of the hand of the kings that we've seen through the entirety of this world so far have been old men, Tyrion, like people that are in the shadows that are just advising the king. He's doing that while also riding out the battle, which I think is super dope, even though I hate this guy. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah. This definitely was his episode to have some redeeming qualities and or actions. Not that he has the actual mentality to back any of them up. We will see. I don't know if it's a redemption arc he's setting down, or it's just some misdirections to make us mildly maybe like a very terrible character.
That's what I was wondering, dude. Because is he the redemption arc that we're gonna get through the show? Like, is he the Jamie of the show where you just start out hating him hating seeing him on screen, and then at the end of the show, he ended up being maybe one of my favorite characters for sure.
That's interesting because I feel like we've associated Daemon with Jaime. I don't know if we've past associated Cole, but obviously there's a lot of similarities there, even in the fact that he's basically like banging the queen behind everyone's back.
There's a
like,
lot. Yeah.
He is captain of the Kingsguard. There's a lot of parallels there for sure.
He is, and I think Jaime was maybe offered hand at some point, or Cersei told him to maybe you should be hand of the king, something along those lines. So yeah, there's a lot of parallels. So I'll hate that because at the current moment, I fucking hate Cole and I don't want to like him. But
yeah, except Cole started off as like a fine character and then became shitty, whereas Jaime started off shitty,
and then became
more shitty.
I mean, Jaime went through quite the roller coaster.
Oh, yeah.
So that might be what we're seeing with Cole, where he started off cool and started off like this honorable Dornish knight. And I also have to mention, like, I know they've said that he's Dornish multiple times. He doesn't really look Dornish at all. He's just tan. And his name is not Dornish. Like, Cole doesn't sound like Oberyn or any of the other Dornish people that we know from the world.
Yeah, I mean, I know he comes from not a prominent house, so I don't know if he just came from like a poor folk that lived like just like northern Dorne, right? Like technically Dorne, but not really Dorne.
Right.
I don't think he's a bastard or anything like that, but
no,
I think he's just like a mutt of a background, right? So maybe he has a Dornish father and or vice versa, whatever.
Could be, yeah.
So yeah, so definitely some things to keep an eye on for an otherwise character I was ready to write off very heavily, especially at the end of last episode. Like, it's crazy to go from the end of last episode to then like 2-3 scenes into this episode. You're like, I wonder.
Yeah.
So props to the writers on that one for inserting, because for all we know, he's just like a footnote in the
he might be
book.
he might be we have no idea.
I don't think his sexual activity with Alicent is real in the book. I feel like I've read that that's completely just contrived for plot purposes. We head over to Dragonstone, and Rhaenyra and Mysaria have a little convo where Rhaenyra acknowledges her assistance there in her assassination. So this kind of confirms a handful of potential situations that we discussed last time, but this kind of confirms that it was her, that her alerting of the guard ultimately led to, hey, which makes sense because his brother was leaving. He probably went somewhere to the front of the castle. Meanwhile, they're coming into the castle like, yo, your brother, whatever, just went that way.
Yeah.
What? And that explains why he showed up so quickly, yada, yada. So that makes sense in my mind. I'm glad we just got a nice little answer there.
Yeah, so am I. I was happy that scene panned out because that was one of our questions from last week. Is she going to be the one that tipped him off? And she ended up being that. So I'm happy. Yeah. And I got to be honest, dude, I'm starting to like her too. And I hated her in the first season. And I think it really, I said this before, I think it's really she like worked her accent. Like she had like an accent coach or something in the off season, and her accent is not as offensive as it was in the first. Like that's how I feel like I would sound if they told me to do that accent. And it was like my first day on set. That's how I would sound in that first season.
Yeah, they definitely toned back, and maybe that was also, you could just imagine that being like a persona that she kept up with as the White Worm.
Oh yeah,
and maybe that's all very fallen away as she's been highly removed from like her position in King's Landing. Yeah. So maybe she's a little bit more humble now about the whole situation. And I like this back and forth they have. Again, a great compliment to these two in the way Rhaenyra, Emma here just like really, she's just really good at playing Rhaenyra this season. Like she's really stepped into it. And I like how they have this little exchange where it's like, I suppose you would like some sort of reward. Like almost like Rhaenyra's playing like she doesn't want a reward, but like Rhaenyra knows as the queen, like she's gonna reward her. but she's just playing into this idea that she doesn't quite trust her fully because she is, a whisperer and might be a little snaky. But ultimately, like, what Mysara wants is a place at her court, which makes sense. So here, Rhaenyra gets a master of whisperers, without being said, which is a nice parallel to later in the episode where Aegon drops a nice little knowledge where his father did not believe in having a master of whisperers, but he thinks differently. So that's where Larys gets promoted to be master of whisperers, which nicely corrects his stiff arm of being Hand of the King. Which maybe he wasn't going for. Ultimately, he does serve as a good master of whispers. It's right in his alley. So.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and it's weird to me that even in peacetime, you would think that would be like a mandatory position. From my point of view, if I was king, that's a mandatory position in this world.
But Otto performed that duty, in my opinion.
That's true.
Otto fulfilled that pretty sufficiently, especially in peacetime. The Hand of the King, that's probably your job. Is to just know everything. So it makes sense. Whereas like what we're used to in Game of Thrones, and at this point in time, is where maybe the invention or the reemergence of the Master Whisperer comes along to kind of relieve the hand of that, because Aegon is certainly lacking a master of whispers, because we know Cole sucks at whispering. He just kind of takes people around the corner and just still talks to them. He would be a horrible master of whispers.
He would be,
so that's cool. So Mysara, who was once leaving, isn't. She's here to stay, which is great because she's a redeeming character this season. Once again, we get sea smoke being irritated out at sea with no rider. Rhaenyra just points out that restless, and Mysara is like, might be lonely, right? So we keep getting this like fun foreshadowing of like what's gonna happen with sea smoke. Granted, they probably started that too early. Like the seeds they're laying for that are just a lot. I don't know, like people just pick up dragons all the time in season 1, so it's not like we got a bunch of foreshadowing that Daemon was gonna steal Vhagar,
right?
Like it really just kind of happened, in like one episode, So I don't know. They keep referencing that, so hopefully that's a big like. There's a battle, and like whoever's gonna take that dragon just shows up and just like wins it for the team. Who knows? Great scene here though. Daemon on Caraxes, who is looking good. Like they really removed a lot of the excessive like snake movements out of it, and it's just kind of flying like a normal dragon with just like a really long body at this point. So they got rid of the whole.
They worked it out. The serpent movement is kind of gone, which I thought was what looked weird. This scene's dope though, bro. Like the first person fly-in on it's sweet looking, and Harrenhal is always enticing. Like it just looks so cool there. It looked cool in Game of Thrones anytime that we saw it. It's especially cool here at night with the storm going on. It's a very haunting scene here. But yeah, that dragon fly in, I was like, this is sweet, dude. I think we did get maybe that in from the Night King's point of view during the Long Night episode, where it was like a first person shot of him like blowing one of the walls out of the castle. But it's cool to see here again. And yeah, I'm glad that the movements worked out. Like they obviously got some feedback on this guy doesn't look like he's moving too good. So let's get rid of the serpent movement.
Yeah, and again, like they really have the CGI and all that figured out, because they start with a super wide shot of like nearly all of Harrenhal with like Caraxes coming out of the side of the screen. So they're able to nail those wide shots that look beautiful, but then like they can dial in on it too. And even to the point where, and I was thinking about this, I was like, yeah, of course, if you're a dragon rider, you park it on top of the castle and work your way down.
Yeah, for sure.
Because you're a hard ass that rides a dragon. Like,
it does seem like anytime that you see a dragon in a medieval setting, they're always landing on top of the castle. Like whether you go back to the World of Warcraft trailer for Cataclysm, where he lands up on the castle. I think there might even be one in Lich King where the ice dragon lands on top of the castle. So it's always cool. I love it. I don't understand the mechanics of it. Like, I don't understand. He lands up there. Is there like a ladder that he's going down? Because presumably
it's a tower.
It's a tower, I guess. But is there like a scuttle hatch up there that he's dropping down into, or what?
Given that the Harrenhal is pretty beat up, I mean, there's probably already a hole in the roof, as we can see that place is leaky as all hell. So yeah, I don't know if that was just like the dramatic like land, and then he parked somewhere like more accessible. We only see him come down one flight of stairs from around the corners. So
and then I do have some questions about, which I found somewhat, I don't want to say comical, but I did find it a little bit funny. The way he's like clearing the castle, he's doing like sword CQB through the castle with the sword like out in front of him, like a gun. I was like, is that like a thing? Like, did they do it like that? Like, I would want that thing up here, like to block I don't want it out here to someone's just going to slice me right around the corner when I walk in. Like, I want it up.
I think that's just a fighting style choice, just like Jedi. Like, there's defensive stance and there's offensive stance. Like, he's definitely spooky enough, has the right amount of armor and skill that he's just gonna murder whatever he finds. It's not the other way around for Daemon.
I just found it. I found it hilarious.
Cool.
It was definitely cool because I've been watching a lot of it. It's a ex SEAL Team 6 member that has a YouTube channel that does like tactics. And I've been watching like all his CQB videos, which is very satisfying to watch. I have no need for any of the shit. I don't even own a gun, but it's cool to watch. And it's cool to watch just how accurate and spot on he is with everything. Like, even him raising his gun is like freaking amazing. So it was cool to go from that, and then now we have Daemon doing it with his sword like through the castle. I thought was sweet. So, but I did find it. I was like, I don't know if I personally would do it that way. Like, I want that in a defensive posture versus offensive.
At least he just wasn't like in a slack sense, just like kind of strolling through the castle, like really. At least he showed a little bit of like, where am I going to get ambushed? Like, who's going to try to kill me? But I do like he is kind of just clearing the largest castle in like all of Westeros
by
solo.
Himself. It felt very like Dark Souls. Like, that's what it felt like. He's rolling into this dark castle.
And it definitely had that like cop vibe where they're like moving through, the drug house or the apartments, and they're looking for something. So it did have a cool, they did a cool thing there with it. But ultimately, we see what's going on here. Harrenhal is in large disrepair, and Sir Simon Strong, being, I believe, the uncle. He's the uncle, but his brother was Larys's father, and he directly calls out. He's like, "There has not been a fire in this damp, wet, holy place in hundreds of years, and my, an important part of my family just dies by fire, and Larys makes it out."
Right.
He's mad sus of
and
his nephew.
What was the point? I can't remember what the point of that in season 1 was. Why did they kill those two?
Because was it not his brother who was dating Rhaenyra and had her children?
Right.
So he was doing.
But wasn't there some other? Was it? They were just like given Harrenhal, right? Isn't that they were given Harrenhal? I think they were just given it, and that he took off, and then they killed him like the first night they were there. But I don't see the purpose really, unless I think
it was a combination of doing favors for Alicent because he liked her feet.
Right.
It elevated his status because he's presumably now high ranking in his family who controls Harrenhal, by title. Obviously his uncle's the steward there, but Larys is just elevating his status, doing favors for the Greens.
Yeah. I just can't remember for the life of me what that, because I know that Alicent hinted at doing that, and then she got upset that he actually did it, and she was like, I did not ask for you to do this. But I could not for the life of me remember why.
They don't detail his actions, basically, is what this is saying. They're driven by a combination of ambition and political strategy. So I think it really was to simplify his standing at his house, but also, I mean, he was really just kind of just showing how wicked he was. He was just kind of like, I'll do it. And I think that's why she was taken aback by it, because obviously peacetime, like people aren't just murdering each other, like assassinating, like this dude's like crazy. And I think it also spooked her because she was getting in with him to like gain stuff. But like, I remember that being the point where she was like, shit, like, I think I don't really, I'm not comfortable with this route of maneuvering. So I think it was really him kind of flexing his status, his abilities and stuff like that. But anyway, his uncle here, Sir Simon Strong, he just basically says, yeah, you know, Team Black, let's go. And I just like how Daemon's just like suspicious. He's like, I'm not trying to get poisoned by some peas. Like, come on, man. So just a situation being too easy. But I do like how Daemon was like, really, we need to get this place into repair. Because we need to house a large force out of this place. So we'll see how that pans out. But Daemon definitely is on, he's trying to redeem himself through his actions. It would seem. I definitely don't think he's like making a play for the throne per se. Like, he's definitely just trying to make amends.
This was even a plan before their little argument in episode 2, I think it was. This was the plan for him to go to the Riverlands and Harrenhal. Is Harrenhal in the? It is in the Riverlands, correct? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. It's kind of like Eastern Riverlands, I do believe.
Yeah. So strategically, it makes sense for them to take this castle over, even though it is a dilapidated nightmare.
But it is huge, and it can house like armies.
Yeah, and it's always it has always, even in Game of Thrones, it was a big deal, that castle, even though it's
big spooky deal.
Yeah, big spooky deal.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I can't see you.
Okay, that was weird. My whole computer just like went black. And now I'm back.
Okay.
And my camera's like really zoomed in.
Yeah, it is very zoomed in. Yeah.
Let's bump that up. There we go. Not sure what happened there.
So
figure that out later. But yeah, he is kind of in a sensitive situation, being kind of in the middle of not friendly territory. Like, it's
alone.
Alone.
He does have his dragon, so he's not really alone. Let's be honest. But yeah,
I do imagine he can just whistle, and that thing would just start melting everything.
Yeah,
definitely.
So. I mean, we've seen multiple times that dragons and their riders have like a special connection. So yeah, definitely. I think that's a strong possibility that he might even sense that he's in danger and come to the rescue. And that dragon outside of Vhagar, now that everything's worked out with the way it moves, is one of the most intimidating dragons on the show so far, just because it looks so radically different than the other ones. Like, the other ones on the show are basically all the same kind of dragons we saw in Thrones. Little different shape differentials here and there. But Caraxes is really the big difference. That and Vhagar. And even really Vhagar's still the same shape. He's just massive.
Yeah, he's just massive. Yeah, like the one that one of the younger, one of his children ride, I think, or maybe it's what one of Rhaenyra's, her oldest son rides. It has like kind of like fins on the tail, like different design things like that. But yeah, largely they are very all similar, but hers is like more stubby.
Right.
And
Yeah. And it's cool because it does look like they have like different a bit like Vhagar is obviously the tank, and I can't remember. Is it Sea Smoke? Is that the one that got killed with who?
No,
the one that Vhagar killed, whatever dragon that was.
The one that Luke rode.
That Luke rode. I don't remember his name. It's kind of irrelevant, but he was like the quick.
It was young though. Yeah,
he was young. Yeah, but also even later on in this episode. Is Sea Smoke? That might be. Which one is Sea Smoke?
Sea Smoke's the one that's lost with no rider right now.
With no rider. Okay. So, Rhaenyra, or it's Daemon's daughter, the one that swoops down on Cole in the group. That dragon is quick as hell, and there's one scene where you see how fast that thing is coming in, and so it's cool. It's cool to me that they have like different, like there's the tank, and then there's the speedy one, and then.
Yeah, the spooky thing about Caraxes is like I think that thing can scrap midair, like claws and like wrap. I feel like I think it could like boa something midair and just like take it down. Like
with that long neck, dude, it'd be hard. It's gonna be hard to wrestle that big neck. Yeah.
And its legs are like really far back. Like it's just so elongated. Like I just feel like it could choke Vhagar to death.
Right.
So we shall see. We have an interesting Dragonstone Council meeting where, again, I think these are just dudes who have, proclaimed themselves loyal to her, but like they're just advising her, and they're just really like pro, like we need to strike, like now we need to use our advantage, and that's dragons. And she's just very reserved about the whole situation, and they kind of do this thing where they take it a little too far in her mind, where it's like that's a little treasonous. Like I can see you two have been like talking, and we, about this whole thing. So how about you all just shut up? I like how she just kind of asserts herself there, and then she's like, "I've heard your arguments. I'll think about them."
Yeah, and I love the look that she shares with Rhaenys as well, where she. And I think that is like, because they're heavily advising her to strike. And then she locks eyes with Rhaenys and remembers the discussion from earlier. And she's like, I'll think about it.
Let's think about it.
We'll think about it.
I get your points, but I got to try something else first.
Yep.
But like, this is also some of her dad showing through. Like she studied her dad. Her dad taught her a lot. So she gets it. She gets it. And I think, again, Otto and Alicent, though Alicent by the end of the episode, not so much, but Otto, right? I think they respect that about Rhaenyra, or will grow to, that she has restraint. She has long game. She has the longest game in mind.
She does. And I think that's really the big parallel between Rhaenyra and Aegon. Is that Rhaenyra did get that training from her father, and Aegon certainly did not, because by the time Aegon rolled around, he was old and withered and falling apart. And I think that Aegon maybe notices that he didn't get that stuff, because he tries to bring his kid to the small council meeting very young to start him on and he even says like he's going to become king someday and he needs to learn this stuff. And I think he's hinting at, I didn't learn any of this stuff. And you can tell just by their strategies, where Aegon is all about going to battle in this episode. He's putting on the armor. He's ready to go fight. He's had to be talked off the ledge by Aemond. Like he wanted to go with him to the Riverlands. And Rhaenyra is on the total opposite side of that, where she's like trying to avoid a fight at all costs until they all their options are expended. So
I mean, he has a lot of, and he shows it really, and that's what I love about Aegon is his character's so well acted. Is like he shows both his like arrogantness, his brashness, but also like his insecurities. Like he does wear those on his sleeve pretty openly. You can see it on his face, where he is insecure about the fact that if I text you about this. So Otto, right, suggested in the last episode that when Aegon's like, he made me king, and he's like, that's what you think? Like, really? Like you like, okay, dude. So to me that was interesting, because like Otto suggests that like Otto knows it's not real. and really they just took advantage of that situation. So I think Aegon also has this problem where he's like, why would my father pick me to be king when I'm clearly completely inept and unprepared to do any of this? So I think there's a lot of conflict in his mind in terms of like daddy issues, like why
Yeah.
did my dad
Yeah.
pick me to do this? Like, which builds, I think, backs up his insecurities. Like, I'm probably shouldn't be king. Especially
Well,
when
you
Otto's dropping bits like that, where it's like, that's what
right.
he thinks. It's like, what do you mean by that's what I think?
Yeah.
Isn't that what happened?
Yeah. You have to think that he grew up his entire life knowing that Rhaenyra was going to take the throne. Like it was a fact. It was talked about. It wasn't talked about the other way until that bed scene when he passes away in whatever episode 8 or whatever of last season. That's the only time that it was probably ever discussed that Aegon could potentially take the throne. And really, from his point of view, the only time it's ever discussed from his point of view is when he's actually taking the throne in episode 9 or 10 or whatever that happens. So it all happens rather quickly. And we have to remember that we're weeks and maybe a week past all of that stuff panning out at the end of season 1. So this is all very new for him. So he's trying to figure it all out on a whim.
Grandpa and mom showed up and like, hey, you're king, by the way.
Yeah.
You know, everything you've known your whole life is a lie, apparently.
Right.
Here you go. So like, yeah, there'd be a lot of daddy issues. Like, he did not prepare me for this.
Yeah.
Purposefully, because I wasn't supposed to be. So like, it's just another situation where like all arrows point to you're not supposed to be king.
Yeah. And I think we're gonna get a lot of scenes where this comes into play throughout probably the rest of the series, where Aegon is apt to be king, and Rhaenyra has got the smarter, wiser wartime mind because of all the stuff that her father taught her. So
yeah, and the scene where he's putting on Aegon the Conqueror's armor is really cool. Obviously that's where Larys gets named Master of Whispers. So like he flips from like these very insecure moments, like even when he told his buddies there, like he like jokingly responded him about something, and he like reiterated like, what was that? And he corrected himself, and he like had that smile, like, yeah, I'm king.
Yeah. It was about they wanted to go to a whorehouse, and they're like, you're supposed to not be having sex with anybody.
That's
because
right,
you're and I honestly, I took that as him like literally saying that, but I think it was in a sly, joking manner. Also, have to give a shout out to the first generation mirror in this episode, where you can't see jack shit when you're standing in front of it. Did you notice that mirror?
Yeah.
Like, why is he even standing there? You can't see anything.
Close enough.
It's like a blur.
Yeah. That's how they were. So yeah, no, that was a cool scene. Again, another great scene. Aegon acting there is just top notch. Great character coming into his own web of complexity. Kind of opposite that, we get another scene which also like wraps something up, and I was so happy we had this moment where that otherwise is quickly slipping by, because in a family of the Greens, they really quickly like kind of move past for the sake of like getting on with the complex web they're in. But Helena, right? She's kind of like contemplating like, why am I like grieving when like the poor people, like that happens all the time to them. They lose their children. They like the mortality rate's horrible, and you know, who am I to like weep through the streets of King Landing about my dead son? Which is an interesting take as a mother, but maybe like she's a very interesting character who ultimately has very interesting takes on everything. But the best part about this is that her mom's like pressing her about like grief of the situation, which I think she reads in and she understands that, yeah, mom, I get why you're still grieving about this, but I forgive you. Because I know you were with the person that was supposed to be guarding us. Yeah, bitch. She said it in the nicest way. She's like, I forgive you.
Yeah, the most polite way possible. I'm glad that this got wrapped into a bow, because this was this is a big deal for us talking about last episode, like that he should have been at that post and he's really responsible for this. And I'm glad that she I'm glad that they talked about it, because it was slipping away a little bit there.
Sick burn though. Like her mom comes in like counseling her, but telling her how she should be grieving and yada yada. And she turns, she's like, I forgive you.
I forgive you.
Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
like this is your fault. Accept it. Move
Yeah.
on.
Right.
I'm going to. So I
Yeah.
thought that was such a power play by Helena. I don't know what her future entails, but very, very unique character. Very, very back and forth character. Super weak and like wrecked.
Yeah.
Rightfully so, but like quickly flips it with a very unique perspective and burns the person who's ultimately responsible for her child's death.
Yeah.
Crazy scene, very quick, but like another moment in this episode where it's like, thank you for just like,
yes, I loved it. Yep.
tying that up there.
Yep.
We see Ulf here. Ulf the blacksmith, I suppose. I still can't tell if we're following like which commoners, but I'm pretty sure this is just the one from prior.
I think so, yeah.
And I thought this was an interesting scene where, he walks into the brothel bar there, at the bar, and he kind of starts talking to who I can't tell if he knows these people, knows half of these people or what, but he starts telling them how he's like a bastard Targaryen with his half white hair and all this stuff. And then the king walks into the bar. I thought that was just amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. It's great. It's a classic like tavern bar scene where some dude's telling some bullshit story to all his buddies about how he's royalty or whatever in this time. And then the king rolls in and he cowers down so quick, dude. It's hilarious to watch.
I mean, props to Aegon though. Like, dude just hung all the rat catchers from the castle walls. Like, he'll quickly kill you if you're talking about being a relative bastard.
Right.
So yeah, pipe down. So I don't know if that was just like bar talk or if there's something a little bit more there. That could come into play, but he didn't die that scene. So I was like, oh, he's either dying or that was just kind of a fun scene.
Yeah, I think it was just a fun scene. But this brothel scene is the one I was talking about that shocked me. There is something that he sees behind one of these doors that he opens that I was like, wow, like they went full bore on what's going on at these brothels. Like they didn't shy away from showing anything here.
Yeah, and so far it's been pretty. I mean, this show's been pretty tame when it comes to HBO
and we just
sexuality.
We just said that last week. That's why it was so shocking to me. I was like, they've dialed it down from Game of Thrones as far as the sex scenes, and then this was like the most in your face one yet.
Especially this, where it's just really Alicent and Cole, and like they're not really showing like anything intense between those two. Technically, I think like Rhaenyra had more intense scenes in last season.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
But they finally pulled their like HBO card and like we're just gonna slang it all. So I did like how Aemon, like they did bring the newbie to the corner booth and they're like, this night's for you. We're getting drunk, buying the whole tavern. I did think, I was like, now that is how you win popular opinion. You just hit the town as the king and buy everybody booze. I mean, I think everybody in there quickly would be like, you know what, that Aemon guy, I like him. All the alcoholics at least like him that night. But yeah, so eventually I think either the brothel's in the back or they kind of move on to the next establishment. So we do get them kind of going room to room in the private area. And yeah, we hit all the different types of things happening. Which one was was it the last one? Obvious one?
Yeah.
Or the first like few? Like
I think it was the first few. It might have been the second. I mean, I don't want to say it, but you have to know what I'm talking about. I mean, you have to know what I'm talking about. Yeah, that I was like, you never see that level of detail typically. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's implied in many scenes, even in the show in season 1, but it's never that.
Oh, it was the first one.
Maybe it's the first one. Yeah.
I mean, I mean, Blue-Eyed Samurai kind of strayed in that direction.
Right,
but They definitely
yeah.
went Blue-Eyed Samurai when they got to Aemond, because Aegon is just hysterical. He's wasted, but he's also just like hysterical that he finds his brother at the brothel. We do learn that this is the first, only, and woman that Aemon has slept with, apparently, according to Aegon. But Aegon ultimately and all, or Aemon ultimately and all of his brothers, like, rudeness to him, like just egging him on, Aegon egging on Aemond, just kind of gets up and he's like, a whore's a whore, have fun with her. But like we see full Aemon Dong just casually walking
we do.
out of the room.
Yeah.
I was like, yep, they took a note. Like Blue-Eyed Samurai did that, but at least it was a cartoon.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, they definitely made sure to hit some notes there. But this also does highlight some. They're supposed to be brothers. They speak. Aegon speaks well of Aemond, but he kind of called him a dog in the last episode to his boys. He's a loyal like dog. I don't know how much Aemon appreciates all this, knowing that he is really the kind of top dog on that side of the fence.
I'll be honest, I think this scene pissed him the fuck off. And you can tell that just by his slow walk. You can see it on his face that he was pissed off that all panned out.
Mm-hmm.
And he has to, I mean, we don't know where Aemon's head is with this whore in this brothel, if he's like emotionally attached to this shit. This is the second time we've seen her with this lady, and then he has to just act like it's just, one whore's as good as the next one and walk out. But you can see it on his face that he's pissed off. And I don't know, maybe it doesn't piss him off because he knows that he would wallop Aegon if they were to ever get into any kind of scuffle. I don't think it would be it'd be a 30 second ass whooping probably from Aemon's point of view. So I don't know. We'll see. Like, this might become like a red herring in their relationship, but he did seem pissed off as he was walking out of there. I didn't take it as he was just casually walking out.
Right. Yeah, he definitely was angry, but also held himself as like whatever, like still above it. So more naked Aemond in his whore. We'll see. But I thought it was hilarious that his brother crashed his party and just put him on blast.
Yeah.
Everyone else be careful though, because Aemond will kill you.
Yes, for sure.
So we then go to, I believe the next scene is Cole getting ready to depart with his troop. And interesting enough, he's walking through the courtyard. He sees Alicent, and she's talking to somebody. And here she's talking to, I believe, her cousin. Is that
her brother?
Her brother, yeah, Sir Gawain Hightower. And he is from, where was he hanging out at? Was he hanging out at Old Town?
Yeah.
I couldn't. I was wondering. Couldn't remember if it was Hightown or High Garden.
No, yeah, So it's Old Town, which is the seat of the Hightowers.
Yeah.
So that's where he's hanging out. I got to be honest with you, had no fucking idea that she had a brother. So that was like a shock to me. I was like, oh, okay. I think they had mentioned maybe last episode something about his oldest son or whatever.
He either had a son or she had a brother or something. But that came out in their last conversation about where he was going to go. But basically she's talking to him a little hush hush, and ultimately suggests that she go with Cole. Now, obviously this is Alicent kind of keeping tabs on Cole. I think Cole obviously is suspicious of the whole situation anyway. So I think this is an interesting play by her, to keep tabs on Cole, and Cole takes it interesting, but ultimately kind of asks for her like handkerchief of like love, where then I believe Gawain here kind of observes the uniqueness of their relationship. So we'll see how that all kind of like pans out.
Yeah, I'm excited. New layer here for the Hightowers, new character first new maybe major character introduced. I think so.
I'd say so. Yeah, potential to be a major
potential
character.
to be a major character. But yeah, I don't know. You like Cole tries to dissuade him from going, like it's going to be awful, it's going to be tough or whatever. And
I have a full company. It's like, what do you mean, dude? Like you're about to go like to the biggest war in hundreds of years, and you can't spare one more guy.
Right? Yeah. So I did take it as, like you said, it's Alicent's Master of Whispers for this little expedition that they're going on. And yeah, it's cool. It's exciting to finally get, a new character, a new major character, I presume, could be potentially a new major character. So
yeah. But I do like how next time we see them, Egwene here is like kind of riding across the field. He's headed toward like a nearby inn. Cole kind of chases them down solo. So I assume like Egwene and his boys just kind of like head off the beaten path.
So
Cole's just like by himself chasing them down. Like, what are you guys doing? You get back.
So are they moving with a bigger force that we don't see?
Yeah,
they are, right? Because I think they talk about it later.
No, they showed a somewhat contingent of at least probably 100 or so that were leaving King's Landing, which we saw. I don't know if that's like the side gate or an underdeveloped outer part of King's Landing.
We've seen that gate. I think we've seen that gate before, because I think when Otto got thrown out as Hand the first time, him and Alicent have like a rainy discussion at that gate as he's leaving. So I think we've seen that gate before. I don't know where it is. I don't think it was ever in Thrones. I think this is like the first time we've seen it in this series.
Yeah, because there's the gate in Thrones where they always are meeting up. That's wooded, and there's like the old dragon pit fighting area, whatever that they had the meeting at the very end of Game of Thrones. So I was like, that must be like a different one, and this is a new one. We're kind of getting a big shot. So I thought that was Dorne in the trailers when they showed that clip every time.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
But it's not King's Landing. I forget that King's Landing is a very southern style city.
It is. Yep. Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, no, he's definitely riding with a larger force, and they're trying to move somewhat stealthily. And he does suggest, well, granted, he suggests this after this, but Bela spots them from Moon Dancer from high up. But Cole, man, dude's got some sharp eyes. He's like, we're exposed, and like the sun was like just barely a speck.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
I would suppose you'd be pretty aware of
vigilant. Yeah, you're vigilant.
Of like dots in the sky. Was it a bird or is it a dragon?
Yeah. This scene, man. This is a cool scene for sure. Because there's several like haunting / scary scenes through this episode, and this is definitely, I thought it was a tense scene for sure, because that dragon dude swoops down on them so quickly. And there is a scene where you see it flying. I always love the scenes where you see the dragon in the back, whether it's the
like
spoils.
Low.
Yeah, the Spoils of War episode where it's like gliding over the river. I was like, dude, that's like a badass shot of the dragon. And we get something similar here. But yeah, they were like, I think they like broke off to go stay at an inn.
Yeah.
So it's funny because it's Alicent's brother that's kind of leading the band of them. And Cole told him, like, this is going to be tough, man. He's like, nah, I'll be fine, bro. And then they're presumably their first stop. He's like, I got to sleep in an inn. Like, I can't sleep out here.
Yeah, it's a very, like, Merry and Pippin move from, like, Lord of the Rings, where it's like, let's have some fun. This sounds like a good time. Let's go relax a little bit. And Cole's like, bro, like, not the time. Like,
right.
Especially now. But yeah, the whole like we're exposed, and like there's Bela on Moon Dancer, and yeah, she swoops low. And I like how later when she references it, when she's telling the Black Council about it, she like someone's like, how can you be sure that was Cole? She's like, I got pretty close.
Yeah.
And Rhaenyra's like, huh? She's like, I didn't do anything. I just got really close is all. I was just having some fun, which, I mean, good on her. Like, I don't know how she was looking, you know what I mean? Like, she's not, I pictured what Rhaenyra told her to do is like over the bay, very far away. But like, this makes me feel like she's like circling King's Landing from like really far up, like the greater area. I don't know. So I think she's she's being a little more aggressive than probably Rhaenyra wants her to be. But I think she's probably bored, just like doing stuff.
Yeah,
So
you would
she's
think.
out.
Yeah.
She's out hunting.
Yeah. Yeah. I would have done the exact same thing she did. I honestly, I probably would have shot some fire down into those trees just to try. But she doesn't take that strategy. She kind of glides over the trees for a little bit, doesn't see anything, and then dips. But again, Cole's strategy of let's not take a dragon with us that he kind of said in the small council meeting. He's like, we're more likely to encounter a dragon from the other side if we have one with us. Didn't pan out too well because they don't have a dragon and they got presumably right outside of the gates of King's Landing. Maybe not right outside of the gates, but a little ways down the road.
Yeah, he did say they'd stick to the woods though and only move at night kind of thing, which is smart. But he also probably didn't expect them necessarily to like for them to be scouting inland like that. So a nice coincidence there that she was able to find them.
But I do have to say they've got to be careful because they could presumably be rolling with one of these ballistas, right? That would have been the strategy from my point of view for Cole is that if we're not taking a dragon, let's at least take one of these ballistas with us just in case. So we have a fighting chance against one of these things if we encounter it. But
yeah,
he does seem like he's trying to keep his footprint small, and those things are fairly large. So maybe
it's a lot to move and to hook all that up. Like, and who knows? Maybe they don't necessarily have mobile ballistas quite like they started in Game of Thrones. But I mean, dragons can easily run away from ballistas.
Right.
Ballistas aren't really effective when like the dragon is consistently doing attack runs on a group.
Right.
So like I think Baela would be able to dodge one. They'd really have to get like they would have to known they were going to get ambushed in that like field and have a ballista waiting.
Yeah.
To sniper
or multiple. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So I think it's a fair play at this point in the game to avoid, not really a threat until you get like episode you referenced in Thrones where like they're literally fighting
spoils of war.
Spoils of war. Yeah. So yeah, that was a fun scene. Little tease, right? Like for what is to come. But this is probably my favorite bit. It actually reminds me of Cars, like the anime, like Pixar Cars. They have a series, like a short little 8-episode series called Cars on the Road, and it's cool because it references like pop culture hits and movies and stuff. So there is an episode where Mater and McQueen stay at a old hotel that's haunted, and it basically is a lot of references to The Shining.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So it's pretty creepy.
Yeah,
but Daemon here, in his chambers at Harrenhal, leaky room, bed is crappy, he's staying the night, the door starts to violently shake and he hears stuff and like he has his sword in there and I'm like, that is so weird. Like he's like real like suspicious if he has the sword jarring the door and these feet roll up and it's just shaking the door and then finally opens it. I'm like, okay, we're in like a dream state.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is awesome because you don't get to see this all the time. At least we haven't seen this in this series. Right. It was a little rare in Game of Thrones. But I love how we have this like delusion of like supernatural, like haunting dream situation that he's in. And he goes through several states too. Like it gets deeper and deeper to where we have this I don't know who that lady was in like the courtyard, but was like, dude, this place is going to get you.
Yeah. So he saw that lady somewhere else earlier in the episode in Harrenhal, I think. And then she reappears again. But yeah, dude, I love this. I thought this was awesome. I do have to note that when he pops out of the dream, is standing next to the weirwood tree at Harrenhal, which is the thing that Bran touched all the time to get those visions. So I don't know if that's what was going on. He touched it,
sleepwalking and touched it
and saw this. Also, I think that they have discussed like in the past that Harrenhal is like haunted. So it's cool. Yeah, this is a cool scene. I don't know what the purpose of it is yet, I don't know if there was a purpose outside of just a scary little scene to throw in there, but I'll be interested to see where it goes. I'll be interested to see who that woman is and why she says he's going to. This is what sparked oh my God, Damon, like, what if he dies here at Harrenhal so early?
Yeah, I definitely know that from what I've just seen in passing that this is accurate in terms of like Harrenhal has it affects Damon. His visit here to Harrenhal does affect him in the long run. And yeah, I just loved it because it was just that supernatural kind of like Bran Stark situation where we're seeing apparitions of things.
Yep.
So it's a great character to do it to because Damon is otherwise a pretty cut and dry character with some complex like family issues, but like for him to kind of enter this, this more supernatural like realm was really cool to see, and I liked it a lot. And Harrenhal's just creepy, and I think that place generally is just known to be like unpleasant and scary. Even in Game of Thrones, like that's where they were holding and torturing people. Like it's just a no bueno place to like just kind of hang out.
For sure. Yeah. It's always had that haunting appeal to it, even through the original series. So it's cool to see it come to fruition here through this little dream sequence.
Yeah. So really like that. And that's also what this episode did a lot of just like kind of like new and interesting things, but also wrapped up a lot of stuff. And like this was another episode, shout out at the 1 hour 7-minute runtime, and that is without all the post stuff. I noticed they add that time separately.
Oh, do they? Nice.
Okay. Yeah, that doesn't include that. This is like show. I mean,
Gotcha.
it's like the previously on the credits and then like that. So it's like 1 hour 20 when you add in the post everything. But yeah, hour 7. So this is another episode, much like the last episode, where like I'm just getting scene after scene of just like I am just enjoying everything I'm seeing.
Same.
And like they're able to pack so many scenes into this like runtime, and it's just like we're able to get so much, and it's just I love it.
And it's so cool too because it's doing the same kind of thing that Game of Thrones did, but the locations are really narrowed down. Like we're not across the narrow sea. We're not over here with a totally different. We're not south of or north of the wall. All these different places. It's really a kind of tight location so far that we're doing, and they've done a great job of keeping it fresh and keeping it scene to scene. Nothing feels stale. Nothing is outstaying its welcome. The episodes aren't too long. For my opinion, I think everything so far is perfect.
Yeah, like the scenes don't feel dragged out. Nothing seems like, and that's the other thing is like, that's a good point. Like it still feels like Game of Thrones, where we're scene to scene, we're hopping, we're seeing things are moving, things are happening. But this might also be like a little easier to follow than Game of Thrones because they would just straight up mid season multiple times introduce a brand new character, brand new setting, brand new everything, and like, okay, how's this gonna start working its way in?
Right.
So it is kind of nice to have this like tight knit where we're kind of hitting the same 8 characters with the occasional 1 or 2 new ones. So it's a little, I don't know, maybe we can make the argument that this is easier to watch than Game of Thrones.
Yeah, I think you could make that argument for sure. Definitely.
So yeah, I mean, people have to take notes to watch and read Game of Thrones. So like, you don't have to quite take notes for this. Like, it might be an easier intro.
Yeah. Once you get over that first hurdle of the time jumps and the names and the character changes, the actress changes and all that stuff. Once you get over that into season 2, it's pretty easy to watch. Yeah.
And I like that you noted it. Like we are all but a week from like the death of the king and all of this happening. So like so much is happening. And that's also important to remember about like these characters, especially Aegon, like what he's going through. Like a lot's happened in 1 week here in the House of the Dragon. So got to keep that in mind. No more time jumps anymore, folks. And side note, kind of glazed over this. Rhaenyra, speaking of simplifying the names and the cast here, she sent off her youngest children and Baela's sister to go to the Vale with like 4 dragon eggs and all that to like safeguard it. Wise choice, because she's kind of spooked. Like like this is gonna pop off anytime. Probably here at Dragonstone, where Vhagar could easily just kind of descend and start melting faces. Like, let's not put all our eggs in one basket here. So very cool move. Bela's sister, I forget her name, but like she's very kind of upset about this because she's in a family of doers and very badass people, and she's kind of getting sent off to like babysit. And I could not tell if she ultimately appreciated her position, especially when she was given the dragon eggs to also protect, or if she was still upset about it. I could not tell.
I think I took it as, so I think she's upset for two reasons. She does not have a dragon. Even though there is a dragon without a rider that she could maybe just go take. She doesn't want to do that. So she just wants to complain about it. So yeah, I felt like that corrected her being upset, the fact that she had those eggs, because that really is, like Rhaenyra says, the future of the house. If things pop off, those dragons are it. I mean, those are the future of.
That's how I read it. She definitely went from like upset, like this is bullshit, to like, oh wow, like that's actually kind of like a really big deal. I'm still upset, but like I'm kind of nervous now because the queen just gave me like all the eggs and her children. It's important, and it's kind of a callback also to like at first I thought they were going back to Essos where they were where they lived for a little bit there, but they're actually going to the Vale, which isn't completely far away, but very hard to reach all the same, and they know there's a dragon guarding the borders of the Vale.
Okay, that so I was confused by that because they do say something. She says something about Essos, doesn't she? She's like, "You're sending me back to be where my mom died."
Yes. So I don't know if it's like the eggs are going to the Vale and she's ultimately taking the kids back to, because she mentions the like Lord or whatever over there, like the merchant guy that like harbored Daemon and all that.
Yeah.
So
I don't know if that was the original plan. And she was like, oh, that kind of upset her. So let's maybe send her to the Vale with the eggs. That might satisfy her.
That is true, because she did talk to her in her chambers first. And then later when they're leaving, she did add on some extra information there. So maybe they switched it up. But yeah, that confused me.
But I was also confused too, because you do say that there is a dragon guarding the Vale, but was that ever sent? I don't remember. I remember it being discussed that they had agreed to side with the Blacks as long as they had a dragon to guard the Vale.
That was reiterated this episode, so it's either going to happen with this movement or.
But with what dragon? She doesn't have a dragon.
It's not her. It's I thought it was just Jake's, her oldest son. I thought.
Oh, he's going. Okay, gotcha.
Well, but I mean, there's Bela, and then her husband, which is her son.
Right.
She's youngest. She doesn't have a dragon. Luke's dead. Yeah, I assume it's her oldest. Jacaerys.
Yeah, makes sense.
Hopefully we see it.
Right. Yeah.
And that's the thing is like, and this was, well, let's save that note about Aemond, because Aemond is mentioned one more time in this episode. So this is where we shift into Alicent and Rhaenyra's plan here. So ultimately, it was the White Worm, right? Hatch just playing with her to get her into there. I like how we just have somebody. Was that dude with Rhaenyra like in King's Landing met her there, or someone that's also undercover going with her? He looked familiar, but I was like, I have no idea who this guy is.
I didn't think he looked familiar. I've never seen that dude. I was trying to.
He has to be trustworthy.
It has to be. Yeah, I presume that he went with her.
Yeah,
like as one of the King's Guard or Queen's Guard or whatever they call them. Went with her because he does have a weapon with him.
Fantastic disguise.
So like, good. Yeah. And like, it reminded me of the Shame. Yeah. Shame. As soon as I saw her, I was like, that's what she is, Septa.
it is her, like, but like without all the features.
All the features, yeah.
Still you get all that Rhaenyra like impressions, like all through the face. But yeah, I was completely okay with that invasion or subterfuge of getting into King's Landing. I was
Yeah.
fine with that. That's
Yeah.
totally
Oh,
normal.
hang on a second. I have to go back. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Back to Damon's tree tripping moment.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, we see young Rhaenyra's
Yes.
actress in there, and
Shout
I
out.
called out. I hoped that she would come back. I thought she'd come back for like a flashback scene. I didn't expect her to come back in this scenario.
Stitching
Yeah.
young
Yeah.
Jacaerys or whatever his name is, like, head back on.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Saying that she always has to clean up Damon's mess or whatever. But yeah, I was excited. I was like, oh, yes, she's back. Because I loved her. Don't get me wrong. New Rhaenyra has won my heart over. I have no qualms of her not being Rhaenyra anymore. But it was cool to see her come back. So sorry I had to go back because I forgot to say that.
I mean, no, that's a wonderful point because, like, young Alicent, young Rhaenyra were so good, but, like, at this point, Alicent and Rhaenyra are old, like,
Yeah.
also so good, and, like, the way they were able to contrive those actors and, like, quality of, like, it's not like any of them suck. They're
No,
all amazing.
they're all stellar. Yeah. And it's funny because like halfway through when we get the change to Alicent, older Alicent and Rhaenyra, I'm like, these are just not Alicent and Rhaenyra, man. We've been watching whatever 6 episodes or whatever it was, 4 episodes with the younger actresses. Now, currently, seeing her, I'm like, she's not Rhaenyra. Like, this new actress is Rhaenyra, especially Alicent. I think this new Alicent, she has got like the best I'm visibly annoyed face without saying it or overly showing it. She has just this great facial way of showing you that she's pissed off with it. She's like visibly rolling her eyes without rolling her eyes. And it comes out in almost every scene that she's in. She pulls this face out, and I love it.
Yeah, and also just like her existential sadness too.
Yeah.
She's really good at showing, like, where she doesn't need any particular reason at that moment to be sad, but like all of like her existence is like she knows it's sad and like depressing, and she shows it. Yeah, she's good.
Love it
for sure.
Anyway, back to the septa in disguise.
Yeah, so yeah, I think it's really cool that she just kind of like strolls on in there. Granted, now the whole like, I thought she was just gonna kneel down and start talking to her, but instead she like pulls the knife move and like almost as like a, hey, if you scream and like call me out, I'm just gonna stab you, and like hopefully you dying is enough. But really quickly, she admits, she's like, yeah, I know this is a shitty plan. Just really quick, Alicent. Like, I've come this far. Just hear me out. So I like that she acknowledges a shitty plan.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know. The strategy of pulling the knife on her, I felt like could have went really bad really quickly. And it almost did. Like Alicent grabs her arm. Like, what the like?
Yeah.
But she has to simultaneously pull a knife on her while also telling her, I'm not here to kill you, which is a little difficult to do when you're pulling a knife on somebody, I assume.
She should have done that in reverse. She should have been like, Alicent.
Yeah.
And then like turns and just like knife, like don't fucking scream.
Right.
Instead of it's complete shock and like knife without speaking. It's like, I don't know. There's
just so many shocks there for Alicent. There's like, the septa has a knife. Oh my God, the septa's Rhaenyra, the woman that I'm in a war with currently. But yeah, there's a little holes in the plan, but I loved this scene.
I think that's the consensus, is that through any like like whether how realistic, convincing, or whatever you have issues with it, like it was a joy seeing them together in a scene again. And also like it was a good bit of dialogue. It was a little clunky at times because they do kind of go in a few circles in terms of like, what are we even talking about? But the way it like concludes with getting to, I did not think they were going to get like to it, but like she straight up like, in this moment of like, Rhaenyra's like, great for her. She is like contemplating any possibility. She's like, Alicent here in front of me claiming these things to be true. what did he say? Like, maybe my father did, like, and
Yeah.
I'm in the wrong right now. And when she asked that, and like, there's this weird like silence, and like, Alicent starts to like openly recap what
Yeah.
happened. I was like, oh my God, like,
Yeah. Finally.
they're
Yeah.
gonna do it. They're gonna
Yeah.
do the thing.
Yeah.
I did not think we'd get that. I thought this would just, again, never get resolved, and it was just a big he said, she said.
Right. Right. Yeah. This was definitely the most shocking moment. She calls out he says that Aegon's the prince
He
that was
said, what?
promised. And Rhaenyra calls her out on it and is like, wait, he told you the Song of Ice and Fire story? And Alicent is
What?
like visibly confused and realizes like, shit, he was talking about Aegon the Conqueror, not our Aegon. So that was entertaining to watch because I think she did believe, like, she didn't make this up. She didn't make up that he said he wanted Aegon to be. I think she literally believed that's what he was saying, even though we all knew it because we had heard that story be told throughout the first season. It was cool to see her realize on screen, like, shit, I'm the one that's actually in the wrong here.
The realm of like how they were able to visually express where their thoughts were, like, it was just insane how they were able to act their way through that. Maybe there was a lot of projection of us because it's all just like saying the obvious, but it's like it all worked so well. And there's like the moment it goes from the moment where Rhaenyra's like, maybe I'm in the wrong. Like, tell me what happened. And like she tells her what happened. And like she says those words, like the prince that was promised. And Alicent says it completely from the stance of like, I've never heard this story. And those
Right.
are just like weird mumblings of an old dying man. Whereas then when Rhaenyra repeats it, she doesn't just repeat it. She says it in like a cadence of the story in context where it's like Alicent's like, oh, she didn't just simply repeat what I just said. Like, she knows those words from something. She even said them differently. And like she has that contemplation of like, shit. And then like Rhaenyra's just, yeah, it was just a story like that he would tell me.
Yep. Yeah,
And
man.
like
I'm so
they
glad.
weighed the silence there so well too.
Oh, so yeah, so good. This is peak acting from these two so far. There's been other great moments, don't get me wrong, with them, but this was just on point, man. And it was so cool. You're right. That's the moments of silence, the tenseness between the two as they're discussing all this stuff, and then that realization at the end from both of them that this is all really a misunderstanding. Now, do you think? I don't think that's going to change Alicent's mind on anything. It maybe, it does seem like we've talked, there is a beat of love between these two still. So it's got the possibility to, especially with Alicent being so guilt ridden over everything that has happened so far. And she says, like, there's no peace now. Like, you killed a kid in his crib. And even Rhaenyra is like, you killed my son as well. Like, this goes both ways. So I don't know. Do you think it's going to change Alicent's point of view on?
Obviously this would have been like a hallmark time for like Alicent's like, oh my God, you're so right. Like, how do we fix this? But they don't go that way. Like for Game of Thrones, she just like flips back and she's just like, there's no way. Like, no, we're too far along.
Yeah.
Do you even know where Aemond is? That really disturbs me that she asked Rhaenyra, like, dude, like, we're so deep into this right now. Like, do you even know where Aemond is? I'm like, why did she bring that up? Like, what is that supposed to mean? Like, that line freaked me the hell out. I'm like,
yeah,
that's a good point. Where is Aemond? Like, Aemond has Vhagar. I'm very worried now because that calls back to the council meeting where Aegon wanted to ride out. Vhagar was going to go. We're just going to go to the Riverlands and just raise hell. But Aemond was like, nah, bro, you should stay here. That's a good move. And Aemond's like very confident in like the discussion there, but doesn't ever reveal why he's saying, Aemond, you stay here. I'm not going with Cole all of a sudden, where I was gung ho to go with Cole. So it made me really ponder that conversation. I'm like, Yeah, that's a good point. Where the hell is Aemond?
Where is he?
Alicent, why would you say that? That freaks me out.
Yeah, it's a great point, because when we leave him in the plan, he's going with Cole, but we don't see him going with Cole. He's leaving Vhagar behind and going with Cole. That's the plan in the small council meeting, from
wait,
what
is
I
that
gathered.
how it went?
Yeah.
Leaving Vhagar, going with Cole?
Yeah, because they didn't want to take the dragon. So he was going to go with Cole, but leave Vhagar.
Then that's the misnomer, is that no, he's with Vhagar somewhere.
Yeah.
And it was, the distraction was he was going with Cole. He's not.
He's not. So I can't wait. I can't wait to see where he's going. I think there's really only one place I think he could be going, right? Unless there's some other strategic point they're going to hit at the same point as everything popping off in the Riverlands, which would also be on par for Game of Thrones. That was always a thing where we were going to have a battle over here and some other shit was going to happen over here that was more important while this battle was going on, whether it was kidnapping Jaime in season 1 or 2 or whatever season that happened. Multiple times through the show that happened. So, but yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I think, like I said, I think shit's going to pop off in episode 4 here. I think the teaser kind of showed that. The name of the episode, I think, hints at that as well. But yeah, I am curious of where he is and where he's going, because he's the X factor.
Yeah, and but this was also the moment where Rhaenyra finally owns that she is 100% who should be the ruler, right?
Yes.
She completely has ruled out any possibility of it not being true, which is great. That's a very important thing for her, character wise.
Yeah, absolutely.
Alicent is further down this path of you are just digging your heels into this lie. I get why, though, you're so far down it. But it's still interesting that Otto acknowledges to Aegon that you just think that, dude, you're not. So that's all very interesting to me. Now, where is Aemond? And you could tell she was alarmed by that as well. She's like, why would you tell me that? That's terrifying. Why does Alicent Alicent knows though where Aemond is?
Yeah, absolutely.
So what's that mean? Is Alicent, did she hatch a plan with Aemond? Cole's doing is this an Alicent, Cole, Aemond? There is some complexity. If it is not a misdirect, red herring about the Aemond thing, there is some complex green team plotting.
Oh yeah, where, for sure.
Aegon's out of the loop, I think. Cole and Alicent are at head with each other, but they might have something.
And that could be what the whispers were about with her brother during that scene, where they were kind of softly talking to each other when Cole walked into that scene. That could have been hey, you guys are going to go do this, but I'm sending Aemond to this location to do this. And that's really the goal of everything, is that.
Because it is important to remember that still her goal is to control her malleable children.
Right.
So it is still her MO to direct them. So if Aemond, the only way to direct him is to point him at something and tell him to go fetch. Definitely would be in the realm of possibility that she is actually controlling things still.
Yeah.
Which kind of backs up why she would just dig her heels. And she's like, I'm too far down this Rhaenyra to back out of it now.
Yeah.
That's all interesting.
I'll be curious. Yeah, I'll be curious to see if maybe Aemon's on the way to Harrenhal. And him and Daemon are going to have a scuffle up there.
Yeah, and that's interesting. They did this for Game of Thrones. They and I noticed this when I was looking at the episodes on HBO Max. They title the battle episodes ahead of time like that. Battle of the Bastards had its title before its premiere, because everyone knew when Battle of the Bastards was. It wasn't where oh, surprise, Battle of the Bastards. We're oh no, this is it. Everyone's showing up, because they hype that up, because they know people will really show up on that day for the big event. So
right.
there's 2 of them that are pre-named for this season.
Oh, are there? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if we want to talk about the episode, if you don't want to hear spoilers, it's not really a spoiler. It's just the title of the episode. You can leave now. The title of episode 4 is A Dance of Dragons, which is very, I think, telling. Now, how big the battle is going to be, I mean, I think 100% we're getting a battle in this episode. How big of a battle that's going to be, who's going to be fighting is kind of left up into the air. But yeah, now I'm thinking about it. Yeah, maybe Aemon's going to Harrenhal.
Would they be so bold? But do they know Daemon's there?
I wouldn't think so. No.
No one knows where Daemon is.
I don't think anyone knows where Daemon is. Yeah.
Unless our very, very quickly loyal Sir Strong
said something. Yeah.
Is a little shithead.
Yeah. Which could be. Let's be honest. Those Strongs are a little iffy depending on what side of the family we're landing on there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of unknowns right now.
There is.
And I love that it isn't until like discussing that last scene how all that even comes up, because it's like we already talked about all that, but then like just the idea that she's like, I can't, Rhaenyra, like, where do you think Aemon's at? Like, I don't know. Yep. That's really, why would you know that? Why would you say that? What is going on?
So many questions. Brilliant. Yeah. In just a single scene, so many questions are raised. Yeah.
Yeah. And it connects back to the rest of the episode where you already saw stuff, but it's like, oh yeah.
Where is he? Yeah.
And what does that mean for you? What have you done? What have you done, Alicent?
Yep. I can't wait to see. Yeah. I mean, I'm excited every Sunday, but I'm especially excited for episode 4 here. Just because it's time. Like, we sewed everything together this episode. All the loose ends basically are tied up, and it's time to fight.
We got closure on multiple fronts.
On a lot. Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I just can't get over how much they've recaptured Westeros. Like,
oh, dude, nailed it.
Like, I'm watching, like, from, like, they use the same song, like, from that point forward, like, it's just like I am watching Game of Thrones. Like, this is just a continuation.
And not only recaptured it, but recaptured Golden Age Game of Thrones, like season 3, 4, 5.
Yeah.
A little bit of 6. That's what they are starting to recapture here, and it's awesome, because this could have been like, let's not forget, this is their first spinoff, and sometimes those spinoffs don't go very good.
But I think, unlike Disney, where they just say yes to the first thing that shows up on their desk, they canceled a few. Like, they said no, like, let's pass.
Even recorded some pilots, filmed some pilots of episodes that they canceled. So I'm excited. I'm excited what this show is going to do for Game of Thrones. We're on the uptick here for this world, which is exciting. Again, I hope we get some animated shit. I'd love to see like Robert's Rebellion animated with the voice actors being Ned and Robert and all that. That would be badass. That would be badass. There's so many options.
Yeah, and they should really, like, I would be more in favor of them doing like an animated, the one that did get canceled. There was a pilot for
The Long Night.
About The Long Night. They should just do an animated version of that.
That'd be sick.
I'm sure they can capitalize on better everything 10 years later, right? And do the Night King and all that way better. But just animate that, save the money, and just make a really badass animated series. That setting is way more fitting for like a cold, dreary, spooky animated.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So, I agree. And we know that there's more spinoffs coming. I can't remember what, we just got a screenshot for one, which is Duncan the Tall and Egg or whatever, but I can't remember what the name of the show is.
A Night in Westeros or whatever.
Yeah, that's
a book,
like that.
By the way.
Yes,
it is a book.
Night of the Seven Kingdoms.
A Night of the Seven Kingdoms.
That's it. Yep.
So That's between here and Game of Thrones. It's like the
Right.
100-year point between these two, which is great.
Yeah.
So there's no reason why they wouldn't greenlight spin-offs for the next 50 years.
Right. Yeah.
At this pace, right, with like a handful of years in between. I don't know if they need to stack them. There's only so much time on Sunday, so they definitely shouldn't stack them.
No, we don't need to stack. Yeah, we don't need to stack them. We don't need to get crazy and have like one a year coming out. Like, I'd love that. Don't get me wrong, but that's kind of what Star Wars did, and Star Wars kind of
they should wrap this.
Yeah.
And then the next year start the next one.
Yeah.
Just don't run any silent. Just keep them in constant one season a year, and then wrap a series, start the next one.
Yeah. And I hope
unless it's animated, drop those
can
around
drop
Christmas time.
Yeah.
Non-summer months.
And I hope they look at The Witcher on Netflix, man, because they have an animated movie on there that's badass. They have another animated Witcher movie coming to Netflix that looks badass as well. So I hope they look at that, because that's an much easier way to do some of these stories that you want to tell. Like Robert's Rebellion, a live action would be difficult. It's going to be another Game of Thrones all over again. A lot of battles, a lot of money, or you could just animate it. And you can even throw in the same actors that played Ned and Robert and whoever else was involved during all that, and have them voice those characters. Oh God. Okay. I'm sorry. That's exciting to me. So
that'll be the episode immediately following this campaign series. We'll just do an episode on everything that's going to happen and we want to happen in Westeros.
Yes, I'm in. Yeah.
And I also want like some of those Star Wars animated shorts that they did.
Yeah.
The one samurai one, like that, but in Essos.
Yes.
I don't know what the story is, but something like sick.
That would be so cool. Yeah.
Do like a short series on like those freaking vampire dudes in the one city or whatever.
Yeah.
Just random stories stuff. From Game of Thrones.
Yep. You're a growing world.
Yeah.
Game of Thrones is growing, and I hope you grow.
May you peak when I'm like 50 or 60, and then you can start to decline.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
Alrighty. Let's bounce. Good episode. Thank everybody for tuning in. We'll be back next week. It's gonna be a good episode. Peace out.
Yeah.